Well, welcome back to the Loom Lounge, everyone. This is our live behind the scenes show where we teach open source game dev by actually building our game, Threadbare, out in the open. We also have a special welcome to all of our Explore Godot learners who are joining us today. Before we get into some of the heavier stuff in the conversation, this kind of gets a little technical. Let's see if we can answer what is the worst way that you have ever lost a digital file. So maybe this is a game that you were playing, a paper you were working on for college, some kind of coding project. What do you guys think?
Well, mine goes way back, but I can start.
Great, Justin. Justin is our learning design lead at Endless. Go ahead, Justin.
So things I've lost that were devastating because of saves. I don't know how bright the indicator was when I was a little kid on the Nintendo I had or the old original Atari. I'm dating myself here, but however bright it was like just dim enough that I don't know if everyone remembers, but back then you couldn't really save. You just had to pause the game, turn the TV off, and really hope that either mom and dad did not see that you had done that. And it would be so devastating because it would work for like multiple days. And then my mom or my dad would come by and go, huh, that shouldn't be on. And just casually undo a week's worth of work. So,
heartbreaking.
Game saves, yeah.
That's really heartbreaking. Did you ever, was there any kind of payback for that or?
I was probably playing longer than I should have anyway. So then it was like a quiet, like I couldn't say anything because then it would admit that I had been doing that.
Nice. Anybody else?
Yeah, I had, for me, it was more recent. I was working on a project. I had everything like nicely backed up in Git, but I didn't push my changes. So it was only like locally on my laptop.
Oh.
And then we went to a pub and I had my laptop in a backpack. And then unfortunately somebody like stole my backpack. So like I had it nicely like all versioned, but now somebody else has my laptop. So
that's awful.
I had to redo all that work.
Maybe the upside, Paul, is that if you're lucky, they will then become a contributor to your project. So they'll like,
maybe, yeah.
They'll learn all about it and contribute. Paul,
Silver
thank you so
lining.
much. Paul is a guest with us today. He's a researcher at Ink and Switch. We'll tell you about Ink and Switch in a moment. Will, is there any scary stories you have to share?
Yeah, Justin, like your story reminded me that when I first got a PlayStation 2, they had you could save games on the PlayStation, but you had to have the little save game cartridge.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't have one. So I got it for my birthday and I was super excited to start playing this game. It was Final Fantasy X. And then I realized, I can't save like several hours of play. So I turned off the TV and then I left like a post-it note on the PlayStation. I do not turn off and just left it paused for a day or two till I could get to a shop and buy the little memory card and put it in. I mean, now we're just kind of drowning in storage, but it was cartridges were expensive. Yeah, Paul, I did something kind of similar to you. I had, while I was working on Threadbare, I had my local Git checkout, and I had, maybe 20 branches. And that morning I'd been cleaning them up. So I deleted a few branches that I definitely didn't need. And then there were some that were already pushed and waiting for review. And then I had about maybe 4 or 5 kind of interesting experiments. And then I tried to delete the, I think I tried to delete the .godot folder, but instead I deleted the whole, I think I deleted the whole Threadbare checkout, or possibly every Git checkout. I forget what it was. I deleted like way too much stuff. And so I deleted all of my unpushed branches just because I was working in the terminal. I didn't press delete in the file manager, so they were gone. And I cleverly set up my backup tool to not back up my Git repos because like you don't need to back those up because you push everything, right? So then I lost all of my experiments forever. And so I spent that afternoon, fortunately, I cleaned up the stuff that was ready 30 minutes before I did everything. But then I spent that afternoon changing my backup strategy to always back up the Git repos as well.
Yeah, so that's kind of heartbreaking and very relevant because it's about Git. And Will is one of our game developers working on Threadbare, and we're happy to have you along today as well, Will. I just want to say that I'm glad that saving is now all happening in the cloud, because when it's on physical devices, like when I was in college and had to save it on disks and then had to find it again in my dorm room, which was not the neatest, it's not easy to keep track of things when it's physical. So I'm glad it's all in the cloud now. So yeah, we're here today with Will, Justin, and Paul, and it's very nice to have all of you. As I said before, Justin is a learning design lead, so he is working very closely on the creation of our curriculum that teaches game development through the use of Godot. Will is one of our senior game engineers, and he is working every day on making Threadbare even more optimized and creative even, and all kinds of new content being added to the game. And then we have Paul, who is a guest with us from Ink and Switch. So I'm actually going to ask Paul to give a little introduction as to what Ink and Switch is and why you are working with Endless.
Yeah, so Ink and Switch is an independent research lab, and like our vision is that we want to give better creative tools to people, and that's like quite a broad range of people that we want to serve, from like scientists writing scientific papers to like students collaborating together on games. We believe that like no matter who you are, you deserve like great tools to like do creative work. And actually, like this collaboration started because like Rob from your team from Atlas reached out to us. And like I also heard like lots of like horror stories from Justin of like trying to figure out like how can you make like learning Git fun, because like that's one of the first things you need to learn if you want to like build games with Godot right now. And so we've been working on like better solutions to like to be able to directly collaborate within Godot, more like you're used to from Google Docs, for example, that like changes sync live. And hopefully we can demo some of that work we've been doing.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Paul. We are really excited to talk about kind of improving the Git workflow. And I know that, Justin, it's funny that you said all of the horror stories, because they maybe not horror stories, but they're not great stories when it's you try to save something doing a merge with a pull request, and there's all these processes you have to follow. And if you're not a very technical person, it can be intimidating and overwhelming to do that. And I've talked on this live stream before about messing up with Git, and it's a very human thing to make a mistake, and Git is a very technical thing. And sometimes when those two things come together, humans and technology, there's problems. So Backstitch is one of the ways that we are trying to solve some of those problems. So some framing around game dev and Git. So there's often this thing where you come up with an idea, like I'm going to make this great game idea, and you want to build it with friends. You don't necessarily want to develop a game solo. It's more fun to kind of collaborate and come up with ideas with someone else. Collaboration is difficult, though, because you're working on your own device. You make a change in a game level, and someone else wants to make a similar change or even a different change, but in that same level. And they can conflict with one another. I love how you said, Paul, it's like Google Docs for game development. It's that concept of like being able to have two people in the same project at once and not have a conflict. So Git, what is Git? Git is it's an industry standard tool for version control, and it helps us kind of make sure that we're not making mistakes when we're working in a project at the same time as someone else. It also allows for rapid iteration, where you can keep kind of like, I want to go back to this version because it was better, and you can kind of improve from there. When you use Godot, your game is source code, it's assets, it has lots of files inside it, but when people are working on it at the same time, it can get a little clunky. And so we've kind of worked with Ink and Switch and Paul and his team to look at something called Backstitch, which is this add-on for Godot that allows you to kind of work in collaboration. So let's talk a little bit about Backstitch. Let's get into it. I think today's session is going to be a lot more of a demo and kind of looking at some of the things that Backstitch is. Should we start with a demo from Paul of the tool, or from Justin of how the tool is being kind of implemented? What do you guys think?
Paul, do you want to show off the tool?
Yeah, I think I can give a little walkthrough. Let me set it up on my
That's great. Yeah, go ahead and share your screen. Looking good.
Okay, Can you see my screen?
Absolutely. And Will and Justin, feel free to kind of ask questions and help guide some of this conversation.
Yeah.
Paul, while you're setting it up, it's funny about early on in this collaboration, I was talking to a friend who is like a long-time game dev, and I was asking them questions about like, how do you actually deal with like, what if two people want to edit the same scene? And they said, oh, you should really talk to Ink and Switch. Like they're doing great work on this. And I was saying, well, funny story.
I think I liked the I was listening to your setup there, Heather, too, and I was thinking too, Paul, as you're bringing this up, that what's wonderful about this kind of collaborative tool is that the learner, who is probably, in my case, already overwhelmed by game dev and all the things they have to do in the big Godot engine, can sort of slowly embrace some very very useful basic ideas of version control without having to be overwhelmed by what becomes a wonderful complexity of Git, but at first is a dragon to be slayed, so to speak, because of everything else that you're trying to do. So I do love that.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Paul, go ahead and take us on a little walkthrough. What are we looking at?
Yeah, so here you can see the modelable platformer level, or the modelable platformer project from the Endless curriculum in Godot. And the thing that like Backstitch brings is that we have this additional tab here. And when we open this, you can see we have like a little history here. So whenever I make a change and save it, it basically creates a new snapshot for my project. Godot already has like a simple history where you can like go back to previous versions, but with Backstitch, this is actually stored. So like even if you close this and open it up again, you still have like your full history. And I think that's like one very important thing that you need when you're doing creative work, like the ability that like whenever you make a change, you don't feel scared that like you might delete something that you can't go back to. So like whenever you make a change in this version, with the plugin, you always can go back to that version. You can also, if I look at one of these saved snapshots, I can also see actually the changes that happened. So here I can see that this coin was modified. And what's useful here that I can kind of see both. So like here I see the details of like the position changed. But then if I hover over it, it also highlights it like where this change happened in the scene. So we think that's like a very crucial thing that you can see like where the changes happen, but also like the details. For example, this is very useful if like with coins, it's kind of like obvious if you move them around. But with games, there are also like less obvious things. For example, if I change the speed of the player, that's like something that you wouldn't see immediately if you're looking at the scene. But if I like click on the change here, I can see that the player was modified and the speed changed from the default value to something else. And so I can start messing with this level however I want. But now let's say I'm kind of stuck. I made some changes that I don't like. I just want to go back to like what I had before with the
Which
plugin.
Would happen to me all the time, by the way. I think that's a very common thing is to make a mistake in doing this in Godot. So this is good. Yes, teach us.
Yeah, and oftentimes it's also like it's just like the undo button doesn't just do enough. Like it just stops where like you are where it's like still the bad version. So like here we can go back to any version. So let's say I want to go back to what I had before. So I can click on reset to here. And this first like loads like a preview of like what the level looked at this time and like all the things that need to change back. And if I like this, I can just confirm and say like accept these changes.
It's awesome.
And
Paul,
now I'm back to this.
Paul, I'm remembering back when you first showed me maybe some of the early iterations of this, and this is something, Heather, I think you can relate to as a teacher and an instructor, is before you even, I think I interrupted you when you first showed it, and I said, wait a minute, it's not a small thing that this history that you're showing and these changes that you're showing are sitting inside the editor. It is not a small thing that this is all happening at a glance without me having to use a separate application or window.
Yeah, it's you don't need to switch to like a second terminal and like type some cryptic commands and come back and like hope that everything reloads. This is all like integrated directly in the editor.
Amazing.
So what I've shown so far, that's not even like really version control yet. It's just like I'm just making changes and I can go back to a previous version. But there are also like some like things are really nice in Git that you don't have in Google Doc, like the ability of like having branches that you can just create like a copy of like what you're working on, work in private, and then like later bring these changes back into the main version or just like leave it off. That's something that's really nice that like you don't get in Google Doc, but like here you kind of get both. So like
can you show us the branches, Paul? Yeah, that would be interesting.
Right. So let's say I want to like make this part a bit more interesting. So what I could do is I can create a new branch. I can do this directly from the editor by clicking here on this branch button. And let's call this branch add more platforms. And now you can see that the history is cleared because this only shows me the history that like happened on this branch. So maybe I want to add like a bunch more platforms here. And when I save it now, here in the changes section, I can see like all the changes that happened on this branch. And I don't know, maybe I'll make the player jump higher or something. And I could also now like test this, maybe this, how this feels. Yeah, that looks good. So I can also like the other thing is also nice, like by just being integrated, is that like it's really quick to switch back and forth between these branches. So I can just say like, okay, this is the main version, and then I can go back to my version where I added more platforms.
I also think, Paul, one other nice thing you're demonstrating here is like, if it's short, not to overdo the Google Doc analogy, but sure, you could just keep working on the one branch, the main branch, if you swap back to them. But it looks a lot cleaner now than it might in practice, because that history is going to get really long. And within that history, you might get lost. Someone who's trying to design, it's great that they have the history, but if it's only a single historical record there on one version, one copy, then it can be really difficult to find what it is that you wanted to reset to. Over time, this is the strength of branches, I think, is that you can sort of separate out, get a clean history of something specific you want to do, and be able to maybe navigate that history a little bit with a little bit more confidence because it's smaller.
Yeah. And like now when I'm happy with these changes, I can merge them back into the main version. So I can click here on this merge button. And this also doesn't like immediately merge it back. It just gives me a preview of like how this will look once I have combined like the changes from main and my branch. And I also have this little check mark here. So in this case, it gives me a green check mark because like main hasn't changed since I created this branch. So it will look exactly the same as my branch when I accept it. I can review these things. Maybe like here, like I missed something that I changed the jump velocity, but I didn't want to change it. So it's useful to have this detailed view. But once I'm happy, I can merge these changes. And then you can see here this entry in the history that I merged my branch here into the main branch. And again, kind of the summary of like what these changes were.
Paul, I have a question. If I, just to clarify, if I reset to some earlier moment, is that destructive, or can I change my mind again?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So here you can actually see this, that like my revert here is like another entry in the history. So like all the other edits, like I reverted back to like this version. So like all the edits in between still exist. So like the revert is basically just like another change on top. So like if I decide I want to actually go back to like a previous version, I could just like reset again and get back to these changes. So like revert is never destructive. It's always just like setting a new version, and you can still change your mind later.
That's
I
huge.
have a question. I have a question about branches. So you are able to create multiple branches, and I'm wondering what you would call them. So do you have any tips? And this could be Will as well, because I know the same thing happens in Git when you make branches, but do you have tips for how to keep track of all your branches? I can see that being maybe a little overwhelming, to think about how to keep track of the different branches, because eventually I think the goal is that the branch gets merged into main when you're ready with that. But how should you keep track of all those branches?
Yeah, that's a good question. So like, a good idea is to like call it like what thing you're doing, or like what kind of stuff you want to change. But that's sometimes not as easy, because like sometimes you change your mind like while you're doing it.
Sure.
Like one thing that we are trying, or like one thing that you can see here is that you always see kind of like the hierarchy, or like you see like what the branches branched off. So like the add more platforms branch was branched off the main branch, and then I could on this branch I could also create another branch and call it like even more platforms. And now you can see like this is a branch of like this other branch, which was a copy from main. So you also get kind of like the structure, how like what copy you branched off of. But I think this is also like something that we still are trying to figure out, like how can we make this even more easy, that we like maybe suggest names automatically.
Well, I think one thing you're showing there to answer Heather's question, Paul, is interesting, because another way I personally would think about that is where you wrote even more platforms. That moment might happen for me if, okay, I wanted to add platforms to my main game, but now I want to do a specific kind of platform that's experimental. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if it's going to be successful. And so I branch again and I say even more platforms, because I kind of want to contain the experiment for a little bit.
Yeah.
I decide to, but if it works out, great, I can merge it back in. And if not, maybe it just stays out there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's about right. Heather, you asked a minute ago, like you pointed out that the same is true in GitLab. I think it's the thing with this kind of stuff is it's more of an art than a science. That it's about planning your own work to some level. As Paul said, you can't really predict the future, but if you get into the habit of branch early, branch often, then as Justin said, okay, when you realize, oh, I'm trying something a bit more experimental, maybe you've started doing the experimental change on your non-experimental branch. Okay, you can reset your more platforms branch to that point, and then make a new branch, which is cool platform that whizzes around in a circle, and try the experiment. If the experiment pays off, great, merge back up and carry on. If the experiment doesn't pay off, then you just don't touch the branch. You abandon it and you're done. So it's part practice and part thinking about what it is you're trying to achieve. But then sometimes you end up with a branch has 5 things in it at once, and maybe that's fine. It depends on the context.
And Will, I don't know if you'd agree with this, but maybe would you see that as a kind of a good example of where, because Backstitch is not one-to-one with Git, it's not the same thing, but isn't that a nice example of a kind of a good practice, a good basic way of thinking about branches in general with any kind of version control? Or
yeah, I think that's right. I think it's for any version control system which supports branching and merging, which is basically all of them now. This is a good difference from the Google Docs analogy, because Google Docs doesn't have branching and merging,
right?
Which when you're used to having that ability feels very limiting. So I think it's a general, for any tool that has the structure, it's like it's the same idea kind of carries across between them. The details are different, the naming is different, but the general flow is the same.
And it's great to hear for any instructors too, because if you're trying to one day introduce a deeper version control or something like Git, if some of those basic ideas or foundational ways of thinking have been already introduced in the friendlier tool, it's a +1 to the whole the experience. Yeah.
Before we continue with the tour of Backstitch, there were some questions that were, I think, given by a user, and I can't remember the username because they flashed up for a second. I think it was like Laser21 or something. Thank you so much for asking your questions. The first question was about servers. So maybe Paul, you could answer this. Is there a public server for this? Do you have to create your own server? How does that work?
Yeah. So right now we have a public server, but you can also host your own server. And it's also important to note that like the server is kind of like an optional part. Like you need the server if you want to like sync your project with other people. But like this whole workflow also works if you're not connected to the server at all. You can do all these changes, create branches offline, just like with Git.
Locally.
And
Great.
then like sync them later once you're online or once you're connected to the server.
Very helpful. And then the second question from the same friend that's joining us is, what happens if two people make a change at the exact same time and try to merge at the exact same time?
Yeah, that's a good question. So this actually leads me nicely to like the next demo. So like right now there are still maybe I can quickly show this. So like here I have like a second instance of Godot running that also has the Backstitch plugin. Let's hope. Oh, it looks like I'm having some sync issues here.
So one of the things that we have found that with Backstitch is that it does help our learners in our programs feel a little more confident in the use of Git. And I think we would also like to show how some of our learners are using it in the classroom. I think, Paul, are you about to demo some of the features here?
Maybe we can show the live syncing. Maybe Justin and Will can show the live syncing.
Yeah, let's switch over to that. So if we can switch to Justin's screen, great. All right, talk us through, Justin. What's going on here?
I think we see Will's.
Yeah, this is
and there I am.
This should be the same one. So Justin, if you open the branch menu, let's just check you're in sync. If you open the branch
I'll start by doing that. So this is the same platform or content, the same game, but I've set it up a little bit like pacing what a particular group of learners are doing or starting to do just now in a program we have. So if I click on the main branch, hopefully you can all see. Here, can we see that?
Oh, we can really see it now.
Fancy mouse tool. Yeah, so I've created a basic structure, imagining that if I wanted to make a final custom level for this game, how might I want to break that problem down along branches underneath it? I left main alone because personally, I always like to have like a vanilla or a regular version of the game. Yes, I always kind of like to keep that. But here's my structure. And Will has joined the game, which I can show. There's an copy ID button here. And if I click that and share it with a collaborator, they can simply join the project.
Justin, you may need to restart your Godot. So if we cut to me for a minute, Luis.
Okay.
And
do you want me to just reload?
Yeah, just reload the current project.
Sure.
So I'm on the same branch here. And I'm on the same project rather, and I've added one more branch for Will's cool feature. And the great thing about doing live demos is that sometimes there's a hiccup, right? So Justin, I hope when you get back in sync.
Oh, I'm back.
You'll see Will's cool feature. There we are. So we both have the same branches. So Justin,
now we're looking at Will's screen. The larger one is Will's screen. Okay.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the main scene on Will's cool branch. I don't know if Justin's in the same place.
Would you like me to go to Will's cool branch?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, I'm there.
And so Justin is not editing this scene. I'm going to move a coin and I'm going to hit save. And we should see the coin.
I saw it jump.
We should see the coin just moving around on Justin's screen within a second of me hitting save. So
pretty much instant. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe actually, you know what? I think we need absolutely loads of coins, right? So I'm just going to take this coin, all the coins.
Don't we all, Will? Don't we all?
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to duplicate all the coins and just put loads of coins in the scene. Is that enough? No, it's never enough. Let's have even more. Oops, I forgot to move those ones. Well, there we go. So now this is a level that's overflowing with riches. But this is one of these things earlier on that we probably don't want to merge this, right? This is one of these experimental branches, and maybe this level this is not actually great level design. So maybe we can switch to something you prepared earlier, Justin.
Well, I thought maybe what we could do is if we were both working on the final level together.
Let's do it.
Will, I thought maybe I've made a branch here. Will's, spoiler alert, a much better programmer than I am. And I thought maybe I made a branch called player ability, and I'll go to it now on screen, and I'll bring up the player script. And Will has given the learners and myself a bunch of cool abilities for the player in here. And I thought, Will, maybe you could work on maybe a cooldown for this teleport, because it feels a little overpowered, like I can do it whenever I feel like it. And maybe you could work on that script, and I could work on a tile map addition. And then we could merge our two changes into the level. Oh, I can't hear you.
We lost your sound, Will.
Oops, I'm back now.
There you go. You're back.
Do you want me to? So shall I use the player ability branch, or shall I make a new branch? Let's make a new branch.
Oh, you don't want to use my player ability?
No, I can do. That's fine. That's fine.
Okay. And then I will go to tile maps. Yeah, I preset these up. If Will and I were working together ahead of time, I probably would have talked about the naming and we would have agreed on that. But yeah, I'll go to tile map.
While you're editing that tile map, I'm just going to talk what I'm doing here. So I'm on the player ability branch here. I'm in the player scene. I'm going to add a new node. This is just standard Godot stuff. So how long do we think the cooldown should be? Well, let's for starters, let's call it teleport cooldown. Let's do that. And let's assume that let's say that you need to wait 5 seconds between teleports, and it should be one shot, which means that it doesn't keep firing. But we don't want to auto start it, because you should start off with that ability. So I'll hit save, and I will then give it a unique name. Save that. All right, back to the player script. Let's go to the top. Where are all my nodes? Here they are. So let's add the teleport cooldown node to that scene. There we go. All right, so I'm going to say, look for the teleport variables. Do we have any variables about that yet? I'm going to put here var teleport armed, which can start off as true. Where the
So Will, we're going to need a summary of what you just did, because this is really fast.
So what I'm doing here, what I'm trying to do, I want to, there's this teleport ability, which I'll just jump to the code for here. So what happens here is that when you hit the teleport action, which is bound to some key or other, I can never remember which key it is. Let's go check. Input map, teleport. Okay, so player 1 is on joypad. It's the Xbox B button. Okay, fine. So I'm going to just play this game. And I'm going to switch this to be in stretch to fit.
I'm just having fun painting levels and platforms right now to test this.
So you're both making changes to the same.
Yeah, and so here's this teleporter. And as you can see, I can just keep teleporting over and over again, super fast, which doesn't really seem fair. It's just way too powerful. So Justin wants me to add the ability, a cooldown, so you can't teleport until a certain time has expired since the previous teleport. So what I've done is first I've gone to the player scene. So this is this is the component that represents the player character in this game. I've added a timer node, which is a timer, as the name suggests. And I've configured it to last for 5 seconds. And then after that 5 second, after you start the timer, it waits 5 seconds and then emits this timeout signal, which we'll come back to later. I'm going to go to the player script.
And notice, Will, I'm on my screen and I'm I may not be as good with Godot as you, but I'm curious and I'd like to follow along. So what I just kind of casually did is saved what I was doing and popped into Will's. Okay, and I just saw you update it, and now I'm watching Will live create this function.
So we're watching Will do the behind the scenes code, changing the teleport function. But Justin, on your screen, you're seeing it happen, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. If we can see Justin's screen right now, that would be great. Because I'd like to see it happening in the game as well.
So what I'm doing is I am just connecting this. What I'm changing in that, if you go to the teleport function, yeah, there we go. So what I'm doing here is now when the teleport has happened, I set teleport arms to false, and I'm going to start the timer. I'm going to say teleport. What is it?
Will, can I mention something here? I'm also able to. This is amazing to me. If I don't really understand exactly how Will's doing this, he is being polite for me as a teammate, and he's hitting save a lot. And what I can actually do is just step through the history, and I can see him creating a teleport.
Oh, that's great.
Variable. Yeah. I can see every single line that he's chosen to save.
It's like a little scrapbook of the decisions he's been making for the. Yep, that's great.
In fact,
I love hearing Will's keyboard. It's like the sign of a really engaged engineer. He's working hard.
So here's an interesting thing too, is when Will started working, I didn't know Will was going to open the full player scene. So if I jumped in to see what Will was doing, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. That's where we're headed. Okay. Very cool.
Actually, I've decided that what we're going to need is we're going to need a progress bar. And obviously you might want to do some kind of fancier rendering for this later, but we are not going to do that today. Or maybe I won't do that. I'll just delete that. Just leave it for now. So I decided that 5 seconds was too long. So I've changed it to 2 by going to the teleport cooldown, changing it to 2 seconds. So now if I run the game, and I've got my controller here, I keep hitting B. Excellent. And only after 5 seconds has expired does it work. 2 seconds has expired, does it work again?
So quick question.
Far, this is all just Godot stuff. Go, Justin. Fire
do we
away.
still have glide? And I'm going to challenge you if you want.
Yeah, I think we should do.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so could you merge your successful cooldown into the final level?
Absolutely. So this is now done.
Yeah, let's watch that in action. Actually, watching a merge happen would be great.
So Justin, have you changed anything in the final level yet? Because if you do, then it's fine if not, because I want to show the.
Oh no, not in the final level. No, I was I worked on my tile map branch.
That's fine. So when we come to this one, if I hit merge, it should say this branch is safe to merge. Nothing's changed since the player ability was added. So we can review what I've changed.
So there's a little preview that happens. So when you click merge, there's a preview that pops up so that you have to be absolutely sure before you click.
Yeah, exactly. And so we can look over what I added. I defined a new variable. Yeah. I added this teleport cooldown. Something I've realized, we don't represent signal connections in here. But we show the code I've added and the node I've added. So I'll mash merge on this. So I'm merging player ability into final level. I smash that and hit merge. Now Backstitch has switched me back to the final level branch because I've merged into it. We can see all my changes got squished down into one player ability change. And if we switch back to, actually we don't just switch to Justin's screen, but if Justin were on final level, then he would have that ability. So now we're going to go over, I think, to tile map additions. Is that right, Justin?
Sure. Do you want me to merge that?
Sure. Why not? Let's switch to Justin's screen. Oh, great camera operator.
So this is a very hastily done set of platforms that I wanted to just quickly add on to show that I could simultaneously be editing the tile map in preparation to test whatever changes Will has done to the character. So I'm gonna merge. I'll just click here again. I'm on tile map. So I'm gonna merge mine now, just like Will did with his changes, and let's see how we do. So mine says the final level has changed. I think this is an important moment here I want to talk about because as a novice Git user, this is totally solvable. But for me and my skill with Git, I would probably, just to be honest with you three and everyone on the call, I would probably struggle with how to figure out how to help Git merge my changes successfully, even though the final level branch has been changed out from under me, when I wasn't ready for it. So in this case, though, this should work in kind of in a wonderful way where my tile map changes, they don't really have nothing to do with what Will was working on. So while it does acknowledge that there's been changes, I'm going to go ahead and try to merge my tile map changes anyway.
Yeah, like...
Yes, Paul?
Yeah, like, and also like the important thing here is that like what the plugin, because the plugin understands like how level work in Godot, it can always like smush them together, like just by like combining all the additions or like things that were removed. And like this doesn't mean that like always you get like a perfectly working level, because like some changes are just like fundamentally incompatible. Like if you add a bunch of coins and like somebody else moves the platform into the same place, like that will be kind of like a weird level. But like with the plugin, at least you can like look at the broken level and like figure out like how can you reconcile these changes. Whereas like if you use Git, you just now have like a broken file and you need to look at the level by like going into a text editor and like parsing like the cryptic representation that like Godot has for scene files.
So I've got Will's new character. I haven't had the chance to test it myself, so I was going to. I hope I have glide. Yes. Okay. Now, enter for teleport. Oh yeah. Oh no! I immediately. Okay, so I wasn't used to the cooldown, so I immediately, when it finally was ready, I jumped off. But I'll go over to my level, and now I've taken the advantage of my friend's scripting ability in Godot, and I just built out a level to test this.
And it's pretty much instant, right? He made the change just a few seconds ago.
Yep.
Committed it, and it's ready for you to play.
Yeah, and I think what's really cool about this is, let's say that what I was interested in game design had nothing to do with this technical. I mean, what I was proficient at, what I was good at in game design had nothing to do with what Will was doing. What we showed earlier is that it's so fast for me I could have experienced this right now in this moment. I could say, that is really cool, Will. I need to know how you did that. I'm going into your player ability, and I can see everything that you did, and I can step through it.
What a great way to learn.
Yeah, it's amazing. Sorry, I just get so excited about the fact that the branches you can jump in and out of and kind of take a peek at what people are up to even before they've merged.
Sure.
So.
Justin, on that note, you're still sharing your screen. I'm wondering if you want to talk a little bit about what it's like to use this with learners, because we've just started doing that, and we do have some of our Explore Godot participants joining us today. And Explore Godot is basically a program where we explore Godot. And it allows learners to kind of get into the engine and really focus on building a level for a platformer, and just be creative and learn the tool. And so Backstitch is very helpful for that, or at least I would imagine it would be. What do you think, Justin?
Yeah, I think even with this example of the current learners that are trying to make custom levels, they're doing it solo. They're not in teams necessarily, right? But as Paul showed in the beginning, there's already a huge advantage that I've seen where just from the top, just to back up for a moment, if I were to make a bunch of changes to this without Backstitch, and then as Paul said, there's a history tab, but the history tab is sort of momentary or by session. So I close this and I reopen it, and I decide I don't like anything that I've been working on because I'm very new to this and I have to experiment. My options are very limited. If I don't understand how to use Git, my options are manually undo all the changes to get back to some moment, or start over. Yeah. Like there's not a lot of in between there. Correct me if I'm wrong, Will or Paul, but if I don't have Git, that's what I've got. Now I can, even if Will wasn't on here and this was just my level or something I'm working on, I can see my full history and revert back. And then as the learners are starting to build a full custom level that they're going to return to and start building over time, the other amazing thing that Backstitch does is take things that are kind of conceptual problem-solving things that Git and version control do a great job of like making practical, and it kind of visualizes them. For example, in the last session, we were talking about breaking problems down using like the basic idea in computer science of problem decomposition. We were talking about how do you take big challenges and break them down. So the learners we were asking them to identify the biggest, scariest thing that they think they might want to implement in their new level and sort of start to break that challenge down into smaller components. You would do the same with the overall level. So this final level here, if I zoom in again and use my fancy mouse, I don't know if that's on the screen, that is literally on a high level, a visual example of someone attempting to break the problem of a final level
decomposition
down into its smaller components.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing you say, Justin, is that this is definitely useful in non-collaborative environments. If you are working solo, then you are welcome to try this as a way of just keeping track of all of your own versions personally. And then the collaboration is just icing on the cake if you need to work with a team. I do want to say a shout out to any of our Explore Godot learners. If you are listening, go ahead and give us a little wave or send us a message and let us know you're here. Were there any examples that you wanted to share, Justin, of learner work?
Well, they've just gotten started on their big level, but I did ask them, you can see in my example here, I asked them to create a branch for a kind of like, they only had 30 minutes. They had very little time. And I said, they were exploring the tile map. And I said, why don't you create a gray box level? Or in other words, a really rough draft level where you're just focused on, how fun the jumps are and are they the right space apart? And they had this challenge of making the level solvable in 30 seconds or less for the player. And Will, I don't know if you, I shared with you 3 of those examples. I don't know if we want to go to Will's screen and maybe he can show off some of these, because what it might do for us here is highlight what's been really powerful for the learners, Heather, which is we've up until this point, we've been talking about how it works while you're building. But what we haven't talked about, which has been amazing already, just using it with learners at solo, is that they can instantly share. If Luis, if you can switch to Will's screen, they can instantly share their games and their projects with a playable link.
Yes, that's amazing. That is I think that's one of the most underrated features of Backstitch for us anyway, is the ability to look at the play the game live with a link. That has been really helpful for us.
So this share right here, Will doesn't need Godot to play test this. And as everyone knows, like play testing and player feedback is absolutely crucial to game design. So Will was able to launch this in his browser, but even further, if Will really wanted to, again, take a peek and see what was going on here, and so this person built up, Will could just download a copy of the project and take a look at it in Godot if they had it. And you can see Will's now highlighting like that you don't just get one branch, you can toggle between all their branches and what they might be working on to look at different aspects.
This is great. Paul, I'd like to ask you, what do you think when you see this? You know that learners have been using it. Are you looking at it and saying, oh, this is really great? Or are you noticing little things that you want to make better? And what does it feel like as in your position to see it being used?
I mean, for sure, like the list of like things that we would like to like make better is endless. Sure. Yeah, no, it is amazing to see like to get these tools actually into the hands of like students building games, because like that's the whole point of like our research lab. We're not here to do research. We want to like improve people's lives, and like research is like a necessary part of that if we like want to not just make incremental changes to things. This has been an amazing opportunity for us to like get to know your community and like build tools for students, and like because like our like bigger vision is that like we think like version control tools is something that like anyone should have access to, that it's not just something for like programmers that like know Git. Like everyone should have like these powerful capabilities without having to like learn all that stuff. And so we've been doing lots of explorations with like scientists writing scientific paper in LaTeX, but like these were people that are already like familiar with Git, and that they loved Git for code and they wanted to have Git for other things. And so like being able to like actually test these ideas with students is really exciting for us, because like students don't care at all about like version control. They want to build like a game and they want to like collaborate quickly with each other. They don't have any patience. And I think that's exactly like the right like demand that like people should have from their tools, just like get out of the way and like enable creative work. So yeah, this has been a pretty amazing opportunity for us.
Yeah, that's so good to hear you say, because we really are wanting to make sure, and one of our principles here is everyone belongs. And it is very difficult to learn something new, technical or not. Just sometimes there are struggles with learning something new. And your tool that you've been working on here, Backstitch, is a huge step in the direction of providing scaffolding for learners so they're less overwhelmed in the process of game development and version control specifically. So this has been great. I'm going to ask each of you to kind of give maybe like a one sentence, like why is Backstitch so helpful, or why do you think it's, I almost want to say revolutionary, but maybe that's because I'm a little too close to it. And I just am so grateful to have something like this. But if we could just go around and talk about just a quick, why has this been such a really important thing for us to work on? I will start with Justin. What do you see as the main benefits here?
I think, just thinking about this as you were framing that, I think the biggest thing for me is that even whether you're solo or in a group, if you're set out to focus on game design and explore the world of game design and game development, it puts the focus back on that and allows you to sort of kind of set down the burden of like, how exactly does this save, or how do I manage the overall project? That kind of can fade a little bit, and it allows you to focus on experimentation and learning and bringing you closer to your players too, because you can share so much quicker.
Yeah, for sure. Paul, let's go back to you. What are you thinking? And from your perspective as a researcher, what are some of the main benefits of working on this?
Yeah, so like another aspect that I think like is very interesting, but also makes it valuable, is that like Backstitch is not like a greenfield project of like, how could you have like version control in like a toy game environment? Like it actually works in Godot, like a real like game engine that real people use. And so like, it's not just useful for like learners in the Endless program. We also got lots of interest from like indie devs that just like want to build, that are building like real games in Godot. So like integrating into this like existing system has been like a huge challenge, but I think also like makes this like much more like useful than if you just had built like something from scratch. And I also want to give credit, like I haven't been working on this. There's not like my work alone. Like I've built like an initial prototype, but like actually making it as solid as you can see now that it just works. That has been the work of my colleagues, Nikita and Lilith. So they've been also like a huge contribution there.
Yes, and we've seen them at GodotCon and Godot Fest as well. And so it's been really nice to kind of connect with them there and just meet your whole team and collaborate with you. I know both Will and Justin are in pretty regular communication with your team, and it's been a very fruitful and exciting endeavor. Will, what do you think? Last words on Backstitch. And I'm curious, actually, Will, as one of our developers, have you used it with Threadbare?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, having just said we should kill the live stream because I'm sure everyone's bored of watching me just play people's games.
Just talk about it. It's
I've just been spending the last 10 minutes playing these learners' games, which like I'll get to a question in a minute. But I'm based in London in the UK, and the learners that Justin has been working with in the past few weeks, Justin and Phoenix, one of our mentors, are in, I believe, New York. I actually don't know where they are, right? But the main thing I know is that they are not where I am, and so there's this big chasm where I make some stuff and then put it out into the world, and our colleagues in the game team and in the broader engineering team at Endless, we make stuff and it goes into the world, and then I just kind of hope that it reaches somebody and they make something cool. And then with this, without having to teach these learners anything more than Godot, I've been able to play these 3 levels that someone on a different continent has made with no version control experience, which is really, really exciting to see. Like This is like, okay, everyone seems to love double jump. Well, that was worth the afternoon I spent adding double jump as an optional feature. But yeah, it was, and the same thing is true for working within the team. So the other engineer on the games team, Manuel, he's in Argentina, a hemisphere away. And Backstitch is really useful for rapid collaboration on our own things as well. Recently I was working on a new tutorial quest for the very start of Threadbare. So rather than dumping people straight into Phrase End, which is kind of the home base, and you start from there, instead you are taken on a gradual walk through the different mechanics of the game, led by an NPC who takes you on your way to Phrase End. And I prototyped that in a Backstitch project. So initially I was just working alone and just sitting on main, like saving things. Then I could join a call with Manuel or Sarah in the games team, and we could just do a little bit of level dressing together. So I started out by boxing out the levels, as Justin said. We had a quick play test, and then we thought, okay, actually we need to break these up a bit. Let's have the mechanics introduced more separately. Then Manuel and Sarah and Stephen were able to join my Backstitch project and work on level dressing, on redesigning the level. And we didn't have to constantly synchronize stuff with Git. When we were working together in real time, it was real time. And when we were working separately, the same tool just worked. And so once that was all done, we had these nice levels, and I could export them back out into the Git project and push them to Git, which is where Threadbare lives. So it's been a really, really helpful tool for that kind of rapid iteration, which would be easy if we were sitting side by side, but it's very hard if you're all over the internet. About 2.5 years ago at a Godot Con in Berlin, about 6 of us were in the same room jamming on a tiny game. And Justin, you might remember seeing a room full of engineers just cursing continuously because we were using Git. We didn't have this tool, and we were constantly trampling on each other's changes. And we were, it's a room full of really experienced engineers. If we'd had this tool, that jam would have been so much better. Even though we're in the
I'd love to hear that. I'd love to hear that, because this tool is not. I keep talking about our learners and how hard Git is, and that we need it for scaffolding to make it a little bit easier. But also, when experienced engineers say this is helpful to me too, and they know Git and they can do Git, but this is something that can help them anyway in solo or collaborative game dev, I think it's a great product and really great idea. So thank you so much for everyone for joining us today. Paul, it's been such a pleasure to learn from you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to learn more about Ink and Switch in general, and just to hear that your mission is so aligned with ours when it comes to providing access to learners who are really interested in improving their skills, and also just making sure that everyone has access to these types of opportunities to develop both games and professional skills. So thank you so much. I'm going to give a little intro to next week, because we are going to have an episode 7 that focuses on the art of game feel. And this is like a vibe of a game, right? Like you're playing a game and it's either really clunky or it's really fun, and you're not sure why. What makes that distinguishment between something that's really exciting or something that's really boring? And we're going to look at things like changing physics and camera movement, and little tweaks you can make that you might not be able to identify are the changes that were made, but it does make a difference in game feel. And I think this aligns too to some of our what our learners are going to be learning this week in the Explore Godot series. So Justin will be talking about that this week with the learners, and we'll regroup on Friday, and maybe we'll have some additional guests as well. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I appreciate, Justin, your time, and Will, and especially Paul, for being one of our guests today. Let us know if you want to connect on Discord, reach out, send us an email, go to our website. All of those things are ways you can reach out to us. We would love to hear from our community, and we're really excited that this community is growing and getting more excited about game development and, believe it or not, version control. So thanks, everyone, and we will see you on the next episode of the Loom Lounge. Bye for now.
Thanks, everyone. See ya.